You can.
I just wanted to go a little bit higher because I feel, but I
There's
did.
one of these chairs that doesn't hold itself up and it sinks and it passes around and to move. I will call this first budget hearing for 25-26 to order. We will start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, now move on to roll call.
Councilmember Bump. Here. Councilmember Emerald Baker. Councilmember Happy. Councilmember Keller. Here. Councilmember Seeger.
Here.
Councilmember Pruitt. Here. Mayor Wood. Here. Budget Committee Member Cramblett. Here. Budget Committee Members Wanziger.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Kyleman. Here. Budget Committee Member Jones. Budget Committee Member Vitaccio. And Budget Committee Member Miller.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Price.
Okay, before we roll into this, so you all are aware, Shante Clark, the city's finance director, I don't think you've all met her yet. She started in January of this year. She is helping, most of her effort so far has been the audit. This is still my budget. So if you have any mean comments or questions, put them towards me. So she's helped me kind of refine things, but this is still my budget. So Shante Clark, she's been here 4 months?
Yes.
Okay, I can't, yeah. Okay. All right, so now we'll move into the first action item for tonight. That is the election of the chair and vice chair. Upon the selection of the chair, they will immediately take over running this meeting. So at this moment, I will open up for nominations for chair of the budget committee.
Make a motion. Yep, second.
Okay. So we have a motion by committee member Miller and a second by committee member or Councilor Bump to appoint Tiffany Pruitt as chair. Is there any discussion?
I've got a question.
Yes, Mr. Seeger.
Thank you. So I know Councilmember Pruitt has been it when she wasn't on council as a citizen. Is there a typical I don't know, custom or expectation that the chair not be a council member? Is that something? I was just talking to someone from Hood River, and it sounds like that's how they dare that they always have the budget committee chair not be a council member to kind of, I don't know, show respect for that process and say that it's citizen driven versus council driven. Has there any, I'm not sure if Cascade Locks has a norm on that, but I just wanted to ask that question. If we've done that in the past, or that's been a part we try to follow.
Okay.
According to our budget handbook that we got with our packet on page 3, at the top of the page, budget committee shall at its first meeting after its appointment elect a chair from among its appointed elected members. So that's all it says.
It says, say it again. It says among.
It's appointed or elected members.
Okay, so either or.
Yeah.
Understand. Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, not hearing any, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. We'll just do all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Can we restate the motion?
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry. The motion was to appoint Councilor Tiffany Pruitt as chair for this year's budget committee. Yep. Okay, and all those against, nay?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. Councilor Pruitt is now the chair of the budget committee and will take over from here. Thank you.
I'll nominate Mary Ann Bone.
I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, now we need to go into the approval of minutes of, the May 29th, 2024 budget meeting and the June 17th, 2024 budget meeting. Give me a moment.
I'd like to approve, the meeting 2024, and then Tuesday.
And it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or corrections, or it was a long time ago. I expect you all to have it memorized. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and approval of the meeting guidelines for fiscal 25-26.
In your packet are the budget committee meeting guidelines. They have been the same, I think, for quite a few years now. Hopefully you had a chance to read them. Now would be the time to make any suggestions that you'd like change for this fiscal year.
Do you want to read out loud, or
Up to you all.
does somebody need them read out loud? No. So that, I need a motion to approve the budget committee meeting guidelines.
I'm going to approve the budget committee meeting guidelines for fiscal year 2024.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? City Administrator.
Okay, all right. Budget message. It'll take me a few minutes to get through this, but I'll get started here. So City of Cascade Locks fiscal year 2025-2026 budget message. Introduction. The City of Cascade Locks' budget is a story of haves and have-nots. 2, the electric and water of the city's 3 enterprise funds are in good condition. The third's sewer operating expenses have surpassed revenue and have created a crisis. The tourism fund continues steady growth, and as the city's tourism spotlight grows and transit lodging tax continues at a good pace. The street fund is stable as funds from the state continue to outpace the yearly maintenance costs. The general and fire and EMS funds, although sufficient for this fiscal year, are reliant on the internal payments and administrative overhead fees paid by the 3 enterprise funds, with the electrical department covering the bulk of those needs. Beyond budgeting for the next 12 months, the city needs to address the long-term fiscal, personnel, and infrastructural stability of the city. The City Hall building is 100 years old and is literally falling apart due to deferred maintenance. The city currently does not have the funds to complete the major repairs. In addition, the city's main warehouse needs to be replaced, as well as half the city's vehicle fleet and numerous large equipment items, including both mowers. This budget funds the two positions approved by council in the finance department during the current fiscal year and adds 2 new positions in the public works and electric departments. This budget does its best to reach the goals set out in council's fiscal year 2025-2026 goals, as well as prepare the city for achieving long-term goals. This proposed budget is balanced as required by state law. This is not a financial report. It is a projection of revenue and expenses and a tool to be used by the city in managing its many functions, services, and aspirations. A city budget is about where the city is going and how it will get there and what it will cost. Vision, mission, and goals. The City of Cascade Locks passed a long-term strategic plan in January 2024 with a vision, mission, and 5 overarching goals. The vision, building a thriving, sustainable, and active community in the heart of the gorge. Mission, the City of Cascade Locks will provide high-quality services to the community and promote growth through integrity, stewardship, and relationship building. Goals: 1, downtown revitalization. 2, communication network enhancement. 3, code improvements. 4, public service. 5, affordable housing. Community overview. Cascade Locks is a community of approximately 1,400 residents at the very heart of the Columbia River Gorge. Residents of this small, close-knit community benefit from its unique location with beautiful scenery and access to world-class recreation. There have been a large influx of new residents and businesses within the last decade, enhancing the vitality of the community and demands of the city's services. There is strong community support for the downtown business growth and development. Many new residents have been attracted to the community in the last 5 years by the lure of owning their own home. The median value of owner-occupied housing units in Cascade Locks is 2/3 of the amount for similar housing in Hood River, just 20 miles away. This makes home ownership a much more achievable goal in Cascade Locks. This trends with the high levels of home ownership in Cascade Locks. 77% of residents own their own homes in Cascade Locks versus 54% in Hood River, even though the per capita income in Cascade Locks is $33,336, or about 80% of the amount in the Hood River area. 1/3 of the housing in Cascade Locks is in the rental market. Most of the housing consists of single-family dwellings. Only 9% of the housing is multifamily, 3 or more units. Many of the renters, 60% in this rental market, are considered overburdened with housing costs per the 2020 census. A lack of affordable or workforce housing for households with an earned income that is insufficient to secure quality housing in reasonable proximity to the workplace, limits options for those who work in the service industries and similar lower wage earners or single income households from being able to live and work in Cascade Locks. That assumption is backed up by data from the Oregon Employment Department. According to the Oregon Employment Department, only 8% of people who work in Cascade Locks live in Cascade Locks. The remaining 92% of those employed in Cascade Locks live outside of Cascade Locks. However, progress is being made. 45 new homes are being built in Windsong Terrace Phase 2, where the developer plans to have a mix of owner-occupied and rental properties. Ongoing city and state initiatives have improved street and bike infrastructure, and new local initiatives, Main Street Program, Downtown Business Association, Cascade Locks Trails, etc., are poised to take advantage of the expanded tourism potential. Cascade Locks suffers from a distressed downtown business area with long-term vacancies and/or buildings in disrepair. Lack of parking, restrooms, and appropriate signage hinders tourism. A lack of multifamily housing and/or affordable rental units limits workforce development. Working families lack many of the amenities they need: pharmacy, bank, medical center, childcare, activity centers, recreation space, etc. The city's goals and this budget work to build upon those strengths and opportunities and address the weaknesses and challenges. Budget approach improve staff bandwidth and compensation. This budget addresses the present and allows the city prepare and build for the future by confirming staff in the finance department and adding 2 more in the enterprise funds. Duties can be spread out and allow staff to focus on long-term goals and growth and not constantly putting out fires. Although we are a small city, we provide a unique set of services that cities, even large ones, typically do not provide: power and emergency medical services. This is a blessing and a curse. It allows the city to control the level of service provided to its residents. However, it puts a heavy burden on the city's finances and personnel. A glaring issue over the last several years has been the lack of a department head guiding the short and long-term objectives of the city's enterprise funds. This budget addresses that shortfall by creating a utilities director position. This will increase the bandwidth of the city administrator and finance director to focus on other objectives and goals of the city. It also allows field staff to focus on the day-to-day tasks to keep operations running smoothly. In addition, Cascade Locks has recently offered salaries that struggle to stay competitive in this ever-shrinking market for qualified workers. This budget starts to address this issue. However, more work needs to be done as the city is still behind other cities in the region in the level of benefits offered. Summary: the city of Cascade Locks has seen significant change in the last decade and will continue to see change as it grows in population and in popularity as Portland's backyard. Working with council and residents, the city needs to start looking beyond the next 12 months and into the next 5, 10, and 20 years to build a sustainable future. Now a review of our resources and our requirements. Quick summary table of our beginning fund balance is on tab 2 in your, sorry, I take that back, tab 3 in your budget book, if that's what you're looking at. Highlights: fire and EMS beginning fund balance from fiscal year 24-25 was leftover COVID funds that were spent. The swings in cemetery and cemetery trust fund are due to the decision to stop using the cemetery trust fund and move all funds to the cemetery operations. The electric fund has provided just over $300,000 in upfront costs for the substation project that will be reimbursed by Federal Economic Development Administration this coming fiscal year. Resources. Highlights. As mentioned, the city budget revolves around the growth and success of the electric department via internal payments and administrative overhead fees. The forecasted increase in electrical sales has a direct effect on the general fund and fire and EMS department. However, the overall revenue brought in by the electric department will go down due to the $1 million loan received last year for the McCord Creek Bridge project. Requirements. Highlights. Once again, general fund and fire and EMS department are positively affected by increases in sales within the electric department. Sewer is affected by the new treatment plant operator contract doubling from the previous year. Our total combined funds puts us at a total budget of $16,363,521,000. I will now do a quick review of each of the funds. This will be tab 4 within your budget book. Starting with the electric fund. As mentioned many times now, the general operations of the city rely heavily on internal payments and administrative overhead fees collected from enterprise funds, especially the electric department. The previous 2 budgets presented a conservative approach to forecasting sales. This budget, city staff did a deeper review of actual sales, reviewed the likelihood of those sales continuing, and added in the planned rate increases set for October. This resulted in an additional $800,000 in sales, the vast majority from commercial sales and a select few high energy users. The city has lost 2 high energy users this fiscal year. However, their sales have been replaced by another entity that is actively increasing and expanding operations. The city is confident their sales will be stable for this coming fiscal year. This increase in forecasted sales allows the department to hire a lineman and director to vastly improve the capabilities and bandwidth of the department and the city as a whole. The electric department will cover 50% of the director's compensation. However, the city's reliance on the electric department, particularly the sale of power to a select few customers, may result in horrific cascading events if those businesses leave. It also leaves limited resources for capital improvement to the electric system or covering outside assistance. A focus of staff will be to find ways to reduce the reliance on the electric department and bolster the department's reserves. General fund. All 5 of council's goals for fiscal year 2025-2026 stem from the work done within general fund. This proposed budget, bolstered by the electric department, works to accomplish those goals. Finance operations are brought back in-house, allowing the city to focus on audit, backlog, modernize internal operations, and create long-term financial plans. The success of other 4 goals will rely heavily on the bandwidth of the city administrator and other department heads. The addition of the utilities director will allow administrator to provide the needed time to accomplish those goals. Outside of internal payments and administrative overhead fees, the general fund is expected to see increases in property and transit lodging tax. Other small revenue sources are stable. The majority of the funds expended are related to staff compensation, nearly $700,000 going directly to administrative staff, and another $375,000 going to facility staff and being transferred to the fire and EMS department to support their increased salary requirements. The largest single item is the dedicated law enforcement contract with Hood River County Sheriff's Office. It covers the contracted amount for the upcoming fiscal year, as well as $11,000 of back due invoices. Fire and EMS. The Fire and EMS Fund will receive a significant increase in the funds received from general fund, an increase from $180,000 to $275,000. Those funds are set aside to put all fire and EMS staff at a more competitive wage. The department will also see smaller increases in funds from property tax, the Multnomah County service contract, and the increased EMS fee passed last November. Materials and service expenses are expected to stay relatively flat. Like past years, the administrative overhead fee will be covered by the general fund. Sewer. The sewer fund is the biggest issue for the city. Jacobs, our treatment plant operators, informed the city they would not be renewing their contract that is set to expire on June 30th. The city began researching options to bring the service in-house or to go out for an RFP. The city moved forward with an RFP and received bids back that resulted in doubling the cost of operating the plant. The sewer fund does not currently have the funds to cover this cost. This budget proposes pulling funds from reserves to cover the cost. The city will need to review all options to increase revenue and decrease expenses as soon as possible. The 2018 sewer bond has 2 years left until it will be paid off, freeing up $77,000 per year to go towards operations. The sewer fund covers 10% of the utility director's position. System Development Fund. This fund is dedicated to the funds received when property is developed. It is the collection of the charges to buy your way into the different utilities. The funds can only be used for capital expenses for infrastructure in the future. As such, a holding place, the revenue cannot be anticipated in advance, since we do not know at the beginning of the fiscal year what properties will be developed and what the associated system development charges will be. Therefore, the only revenue is the beginning fund balance. The funds will be used in concert with department funds, loans, grants, and capital reserve toward facility updates when needed. Streets. Operating revenue and expenses for the 2025-2026 Streets Fund will be nearly identical to 23-24 and should add 24-25. The state gasoline tax share is expected to be stable. Personnel expenses are projected to stay flat as field work will be down, while 15% of the new utilities director position is covered by the fund. Material and service expenses are expected to stay static. The city traditionally sets aside $20,000 for minor road repairs and maintenance. One of the many goals of the utilities director position will be to create a capital improvement plan for Cascade Locks as roads. Grants. The city has received a grant from the State Fire Marshal's Office to assist in the removal of our yard debris pile. The fund will be used to hire a curtain burner. The city has also applied for funds through ODOT Small Cities Allotment Grant. The award will be announced in July. A beginning balance of over $100,000 has been carried over for several years now. This is an additional item that needs to be researched and cleaned up from past finance department issues. Administration and finance staff will work to determine why it is there, what grant it was connected to, and if the money was spent or really exists. Tourism. The Tourism Committee is currently reviewing their budget and how they want to be organized in the future. This budget is a placeholder until the committee can finish their internal reviews. Cemetery and Cemetery Trust Fund. The Cemetery Fund is slowly running out of funds and staff will need to research a permanent solution. It is temporarily supported by the transferring of all funds from the trust fund and the discontinuing of the trust fund. Water. Just like the electric department, prior forecasts for water revenue were conservative. This budget attempts to provide a more accurate forecasting, resulting in roughly $20,000 more in sales. Personnel services has a 37% increase with the addition of the utilities director position. The water department will cover 20% of the position's salary. Materials and services expenses are down slightly due to reducing engineer services. Debt services. Cascade Locks is currently paying off 6 loans and will be adding 1 more once the substation upgrade is complete. It is a total of $487,000 each year that's being paid toward debt. The funds to cover payments for the water system, both wastewater system and the corrosion control loans are collected as direct fees on monthly utility bills. The sewer bond refinance is paid out of monthly sewer rates. The McCord Creek project and an electrical system upgrade loan payments are coming out of electrical rate revenue. And finally, capital reserve. Little activity is forecasted in the reserve fund. The biggest item is using sewer reserves to supplement operating costs. The water department is also planning to purchase a trailer. There is administrative overhead fees. Administrative overhead fees for personnel is 35% and 13% for materials and services. Each of those percentages are how much the general fund make up the city's entire budget for personnel and material services. And then finally, we have a breakdown of the salary for the utilities director and then changes that have happened on paramedic pay for the fiscal year 24-25. Pay was at $16.56 per hour. After the increase in the fee was approved in the vote in November, it was increased to $19.85 an hour. And in this budget, it is up to $21 an hour Because of their odd schedule of 48 on or 2 days on, 4 days off, they get quite a bit of overtime, and their annual salary will be around $70,000. So $15,000 increase from the beginning of the fiscal year, and it probably puts them at, I would say, 90% of a competitive market wage. Most paramedics are about 75 to 80. So it's a vast improvement from where we were a year ago. And that's it.
Question? I just wanted to ask about the water department plans to purchase a trailer. Do you know what kind of trailer or?
One big enough to haul the backhoe.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I don't, other than that, I don't know the exact details.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question on that sewer, on that freeing up of $77,000 per year to go towards operations. That's above that's doesn't have to do with what people are paying on their utility bill.
Correct. Yes. Yep. So that's the 2018 sewer bond refinance, which is paid out of our rates. And once that's paid off in 2 years, that money can be repurposed for whatever needs to be.
And, okay, but this is about what we're paying for on our utilities, and our utilities to finance the bond, correct? Because I mean, once the bond goes away, then that money goes away, right?
No, we are pulling out of our revenue from sewer to pay for it. So we will get $77,000 injected into our budget. Or I guess expense relieved from our budget.
Expense relief.
Yes, sorry, yes, I said that backwards. Expense, yeah, expense relieved.
Okay, I see, thank you, that makes sense, all right.
And then I have a question,
Go ahead.
actually comment. Administrative overhead fees, and I talked about this last year also, it is not right that all the departments pay 35% when some of the departments don't make very much money. It's supposed to be based on how much personnel services cost and how much materials and services cost. To do it straight across the board is not correct. And if you go back to the forensic audit, you will see that number 2 says you do it based on their cost or their expenses of those funds, not across the board. So I disagree with the administrative overhead fee.
Thank you, Chair. So, 2 things. One, I concur with Councilmember Bump's assessment on the overhead administration. I would like to have a broader budget committee discussion about that and consider updating that to reflect the parameters that she laid out there. She and I talked about this before as we were reviewing the budget, and she showed me some numbers. I would love to, pass that out to the committee and again have the conversation, but also understand the impact. I looked at it a little, but I didn't do an accurate, full comparison of what the revenues look like for our general fund if we use, that method from the audit versus what's being proposed in this year's budget. So that's the first thing I want to say. And then the second thing, so I'm not sure, this is on your resources. It's these numbers, these documents aren't page numbered, but it's tab 3, and it's the second page where we talk about resources. It says at the last sentence, it says the overall revenue brought in by the electric department will go down due to the $1 million loan received last year. That's not my understanding. My understanding is our revenue does what revenue does, but we now know we have a new, debt payment thanks to the revenue, the ODOT loan that we had to take for that relocation. Am I misunderstanding the impact there?
Total revenue because of the loan was in this fiscal year will be higher than it forecasted for this year. I mean, yes, the sales are increased, but there's $1 million less because we're not getting that loan.
now I get what you're
I'm saying
saying.
that correctly.
Yeah, no, I understand, thank you. I thought I had one other thing, let me see here. And you didn't say it, but am I correct in understanding that 5%, or I'm not sure what percent of the utility director's salary or compensation package is paid by general fund? There is a percent, isn't there?
5%.
5%, okay.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, it's as
Okay.
part of their duties for property and facilities. Yeah.
Right,
That's-
okay.
That's that last one in, tab 4. So there's a chart right there at the top of that page.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Yep, okay.
Okay, was that all, Bernard?
Yes, ma'am.
Or did you want, hold on, so did you want to propose that the staff, generate a chart of what the percentage, with the percentages that you two are proposing, the forensic audit, what I'm gonna call the forensic audit formula for the departments, is that what you're asking for?
I don't even think they need to make a proposal. I think Mary Ann has a start of a proposal that we could consider and discuss. We can certainly change it. Again, it's just we already have one. So we've got our proposed budget proposal and we've kind of got this alternate proposal. Maybe we go with the alternate or maybe we adjust it a little. But I agree with the underlying concept is that, utilities that are bigger and funds that are bigger take on a bigger burden. And, that's how most budgetary policy tries to abide by because they have the capacity to take on that burden. So, that's what I would like to try to align this structure with in the allocation of overhead. So does that make sense when I'm
Sorry,
one idea on how to move this forward?
You have it,
I didn't bring the chart.
okay,
I
but
thought
do
I
you
did.
have, but do you have one ready that you can share with us at the next meeting? Okay, so I think which is first, so if you don't mind doing that and sharing it, that would be great, and then I guess we can look at it at the next meeting, is that acceptable? Bernard?
That, as long as we look at this in this budget review, yes, I would, that's my intention is that we do this review, this budget, and potentially adjust our budget to reflect that changed system. If the committee is supportive of that, obviously. I'm just one person.
Maybe we can have that discussion, okay, I think we'll just,
Yeah, I have some questions on the utilities director. And the budgeting of this item, to me, seems that it would, interfere with the employment contract of our city administrator. And his, by taking away the electricity and stuff, because when he was hired, that was part of it. So, and since he's up for review right now, I think you'd have to hold off on passing the utilities director, because you don't know if council's gonna okay that. And I think the city attorney needs to weigh in on if this violates or supersedes his contract to where it voids it.
so,
Yeah.
from,
Two quick things, quick response to that. Our budget is more of a financial plan,
Yeah.
not we're gonna hire this person and how much it's gonna be. It's just money in the budget saying that this is what we want this for. But I'm curious, Mary Ann, can you summarize the difference from the forensic audit compared to the 35% cost support? Is it based on revenue or?
It's based on the cost of personnel services is what it's based on. So, I'm sorry I didn't bring the chart because I figured it's just based on the personal services. So you add all the personal services across get a total and you divide it up by what the cost is and that's what they pay.
Okay, so and if I can, so I wrote down what you showed me, basically it would be, are we talking about personnel or materials and services? Is there different formula? Or type of personnel?
Well,
I just wanted some kind of idea on. what
Sure,
we're
personnel,
doing.
on personnel, it was 27% for EMS, 3% for streets, 6% for water, 3% for sewer, 30% for city light, and then 6%, oh no, actually, 30% altogether, 24 for city light, and then 6% for South Main. So, and then there was a different formula for material and services, which is 3% EMS and 1% streets, 3% water, 10% sewer, 64% light, and 7% South Main, but I didn't catch if that was part of the 64% or not, so
no,
that's
it's not, it's not.
it's 7, okay. So, and then the only thing I'd like to say back to that, this is just a guideline law, once it gets passed, it kind of makes everything count.
It authorizes the funding, but
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah,
hiring somebody or negotiating a
yeah,
contract.
agreed. Tom?
So I remember when Gordon kind of put that whole thing together some years ago, and the issue that I have with it is part of what they did was who got paid the most. And what it did to the EMS, who is up there with, you're saying, or 27% in it, is some of our enterprises funds, whatever their cost is, they all had revenue. And they have enough revenue to cover that and have some extra money. EMS has a hard time doing that. We put a lot of money in the EMS, but we have a hard time recuperating a lot of that money. So to me, it puts a big load on them. So we're asking a ton of money out of them that they really can't generate. Where power generates that from it from fees and water and everybody else generates some income for you. It's hard for EMS to generate much income, and that's what we've seen in the past. So we're putting a big load on them to cover these overheads. When they don't generate the income.
Okay, well, what happens in this budget is they pay it and we give it right back to them.
Yeah, but what,
Which I don't think is fair, because everybody should pay for their own, and I understand that EMS doesn't have the revenue. But that's why it goes to general fund, then it goes right back to them.
So, and they're the only one that gets of that percentage that they give, they're the only one that gets that back to them.
Yeah, they're the only ones that
None
get
of the other
forgiven.
departments get it back, like they, okay.
Yeah, they're the only ones that get forgiven.
I'm good with that.
any more discussion?
Can I get you to repeat them percentages again for
Okay.
the more personnel?
Okay, for personnel, the forensic formula, this is just what I'm gonna call it.
Yeah.
Is 27% for EMS,
Uh-huh,
streets, 3%, water, 6%,
uh-huh.
sewer, 3%. City light, itself is 24%, and South Bank is 6%.
Thank you.
And then for material and services, the forensic formula is, but I don't know, we aren't discussing it, well, maybe, I'll just give it to you. It's 3% EMS, 1% street, 3% water, 10% sewer, city light, 64%, and South Bank, 7%.
And then, can I ask one more? On the next page for the paramedic salary breakdown. When we sent the measure in that got passed in November, a lot of that was related to the community that we were gonna get our fire and EMS up to a living wage.
Correct. Yes.
Is there a reason why we can't go more than 90%? Because $21 an hour, I don't know what they're making across the river, but I don't think $21 an hour is close to what they can get for crossing the water.
No, I don't, no, I think they are higher across the river. I don't know what their salary is. I mean, that's, other than taking more from the general fund, that's what the budget could allow.
And I think also we're anticipating the food and beverage.
If it doesn't pass,
Looking forward
if it doesn't pass, there's the much bigger conversation the city needs to have. in terms of the forensic audit formula at 64% for materials and services for the city light, that's $1.7 million. It would bankrupt the department. It wouldn't be able to pay for itself, wouldn't be able to maintain anything. It would destroy the department. It's not feasible. I mean, I haven't ran the numbers, but just looking at that math, it's not possible.
Bernard, thank you. Bernard,
Am I up?
yes.
Okay, yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm reading the math wrong, but the number I saw from Councilmember Bump's sheet showed the impact on City Light for materials and services like $172,000. And I'm not sure what that's with the new, the new design. I'm not sure what, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it doesn't look like it's the massive number that maybe the city administrator is under the impression it is. Look, we need to go through this. Regardless, if we tweak these numbers, at least my request is we go through this. I shouldn't say we need. I would like us to go through it and have this conversation, and maybe we change some of these numbers, but we try to adhere to that broader philosophy of the utility or the department that has a greater ability to pay should step up, in relationship to that their fiscal picture. That's my only request on this.
With that being said, I guess we should have like by maybe a show of hands to see if that's what people want to do, just to have the discussion, not make any
I
changes.
wouldn't mind seeing how it would look to how it, and how it affects, how it trickles down.
Okay, so all that would like to see that, put their, I guess, put their hands up and so we can see that there's at least a majority. Okay, all right, so, Mary Ann, you got more on your plate. Thank you. Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay. I'm assuming you don't want to read the fiscal year city council goals.
No, that's just for reference.
So now I'm going to open the public hearing on possible uses of revenue sharing.
In order to receive and expend state revenue sharing funds, the city must hold a public hearing to obtain citizens' input on how it should be spent. The 2025-2026 proposed budget does not change how the funds were expended in 22-23, 23-24, or 24-25. Estimated total state revenue sharing is $12,000, $5,000 to support community programs, 33 or 3,000 to subsidize low income sewer or senior sewers, 3,000 for Mid-Columbia Community Action Council, and 1,000 for Reverse 911. The proposed budget has 10,000 set aside. Actually, that is wrong. 5,000 set aside for supporting community programs, with all 5,000 of it being funded by revenue sharing. The proposed budget has 3,000 for each subsidizing low income sewer and low income general population for electricity bills. The final 1,000 is used for Reverse 911. So in all of these, it's budgeted for expense is covered by the shared revenue.
Discussion? I'm sorry, I guess, do we, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Do we have any written testimony?
I did not receive any.
Anybody here from the public to talk about it? Okay.
Bernard has his hand up. I'm not sure if he's wanting to talk as public.
Oh, no, not as public, sorry.
Oh, well, do we have the discussion while the hearing is open, or do we have it after it's closed?
After it's closed.
So, I'm seeing that there's no testimony, I'm gonna go ahead and close the hearing, just a few minutes after we started it. And now we can have discussion. Bernard, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. So just real quick, where is this in our budget book? What tab is it?
It is, and it was in an extra little packet that we received. There was an extra side pack, I don't know, there was an
It was the agenda packet.
yeah, it was, yeah, there was an agenda packet in addition to the budget. So it's not really, yeah. It's a
Okay, is it
little-
online? If I went on the website, would I find it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it should have been emailed as well.
Okay. Well, I'll take a look, but I'm gonna just lead with one of the intentions I have in this budget review. So last year, in our budget, we had a code enforcement officer funded. And this year, that position is not funded. And it would be my intention that we somehow restore the funding for the code enforcement officer. I don't want to make a huge speech, but basically, I still see a tremendous need for code enforcement in our town. There are lots of issues that could be improved to improve the quality of life and make us a more attractive place, both only to live but also to visit. And that work's not going to get done if we don't have a code enforcement officer. Looking at the numbers, it's not that it's relatively affordable, especially if we assume we're not going to hire them immediately. So we're probably talking about a 9-month, funding proposal. And but again, that's one thing to say, I want a position. It's another thing to say, find the revenue. Well, as I'm combing through this budget, I'm looking for places where I can save money from the general fund. And the question I wanted to ask the city administrator was, can we do the sewer subsidy or the electric, subsidy with electric funds instead of the general fund? Is that an option? The funds from the state can be used to anything that the city wants. And that's my first question. Is that a true statement? We can use anything that we want for those dollars from the state.
I honestly don't know. I'd have to do some research on that. I don't know
Okay.
enough about it.
Well, if we could use that for general fund needs, then we could save some general fund dollars by asking the electric utility to pay that instead of these funds doing that. And, just to review, we're trying to cobble together about $40,000 to fund a half-time code enforcement officer. So, I'm happy to share with you the different places when we get into the different budget areas that we might be able to find these funds. But this is a small area we could make a change to free up some general fund to pay for that. So I'd like to know, one, if you can use those dollars for that, and then two, if we can, is the committee supportive of, for example, having electric do that instead of us, and making sure electric can do that. I assume they can, help low-income customers through this type of program. But again, I would want the finance director to make sure we're being accurate in our budget policy there.
Just so you know, the proposal is $5,000 for support community programs, which is, what is that?
And if somebody asks council for money for a nonprofit to put on an organization, it's kind of money the council has set aside to help support community events. It has, in my recent past, the picnic or community picnic has been the biggest item out of there.
So 5,000 for support community programs, 3,000 for subsidized low-income senior sewer, 3,000 for Mid-Columbia Action Council, that's the electric.
That's the
That's-
electric
yeah.
subsidy.
Yep.
For low
And
income.
then 1,000 for reverse 911. And then I think Courtney has a point to make about trying to see it online.
from the Cascade Locks website. I click on the 2025 budget committee meeting minutes and agenda. I'm sorry. It asks for me to log in. I also didn't receive any.
Oh, that's weird.
I didn't even.
Didn't you receive an email?
Not.
Why would it ask you to log in?
Anything about the
Yeah,
event.
that's for login.
Huh, that's a new one.
Yeah.
Are you on
Are you on the
I've done it
Wi-Fi?
at home, on my computer, on my Wi-Fi, on my data, on my work's Wi-Fi. Off the top. You gotta make that comment.
That's a new one.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
I have a question a little bit about the history of the code enforcement. We put that into the budget last year at for just a few hours. How many hours? Can you remind me how many hours that we put in the budget for a code enforcement officer last year? And were we ever able to hire that position?
Yes, so it was a casual position, 16 hours a week for only about 8 hours a month. Part of that was to keep it under 600 hours a year, so we don't have to pay PERS to try and save us money. And it was filled. The position was about 11 months. They made some good progress, but they also had some roadblocks. Person felt it was just a lot of letter writing campaign without having funds set aside to actually do abatement and proactively do things. They felt it was kind of just spinning their wheels, which is part of the reason they left the position, and it was never filled after that.
So. Sure.
I know this is not where we're at on the agenda, but since we're talking about the code enforcement officer position, maybe there's a consideration for a contract person or service rather than an employee that we have to. Especially it's letter writing and all that, they can do that on the city things work.
Okay, so do we want to leave the decision making on the shared revenue until we work things out a little bit and make sure that we do vote on it at the next meeting?
I think this is just for the hearing, it's not.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, now I need somebody to make a motion to approve the property tax rate of $2.7075 per thousand assessed value for fiscal year 25-26.
I move to approve the property tax rate of $2.07.05 for 1,000 assessed value for fiscal year 25-26.
I need a second.
One second.
Any discussion? I'll just say the same thing. We say it's the same. It's been the same.
Same forever.
Forever, since the old timers have lived here. Very much like.
Well, it's making it rule.
Yeah, so it's not really much we can do about it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Okay, now we get down to the nitty gritty, tabs, electrical. You wanna say anything first?
Yep. A second here. Yes, like I said in my overview report, there was a deep dive into the anticipated sales. I had been conservative in the past, not knowing the history of the sales and what was going on with a lot of our large users. I do feel more comfortable with these numbers, and it did provide a more robust income level for the department. In this, it does have the utilities director, 40% covered by city, 10% covered by South Bank. It also has a working foreman lineman to give us that extra person to be on call and have provide the skills they need that will reduce some of our need to do call outs for contract work, but not all of it, especially during storms. I adjusted the actual expenses for the purchase of power and the transmission. I spent a good deal of time going over our actual bills with BPA, figuring out kind of how that split went out. So there is a good adjustment on the amount of power purchased by the city versus South Bank, as well as transmission. So that's why there is a significant change between those two. Capital outlay is also seeing a small increase, particularly in poles and conduit. And also still has the debt payments set aside for the Special Public Works Fund for the substation and the one for McCord Creek Bridge. One issue, and I've been gone back and forth with electric staff on this, is the amount of money set aside for contract services, which has been the bulk, kind of our main budget line to get things done in the electric department, both hiring contract work as well as we use Dennis Snyder quite a bit for vegetation management and other things. Because of the weird wonky rules within the electric department, if we have a groundman, truck driver, our current field position, as well as a lineman, if there is a storm and we need a contract crew to come in, we still have to hire a full contract crew. You cannot mix and mingle people within a working unit or truck. So yes, we will have a lineman on staff for the day-to-day operations to give other staff relief. But if we have a major storm that comes through that requires to have a crew here for a day or two, that will not save us money. We still have to hire a full crew with their trucks to come out and perform the work. So that is the pinch point in this budget, is having enough money for the contract services. This is for vegetation management, like I said, contract crews, anything else that comes up. You will see that last year within the city, we had budgeted $200,000. It's now at 110. And in the South Bank, we budgeted 150,000. It's now at 120. So that is the biggest pinch point. And that's it. Yep.
You want my honest opinion, that's the worst line item to cut. That is what allows me to get stuff done on our system. That money is desperately needed. That's the only fund I have to be able to get things done.
That's the contract services.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
I'm gonna go first. So I'm gonna wait.
Oh, yeah, wait.
So I have a couple questions. And not even Jordan. Why are we bumping up the prices, the sales for City Line and not South Bank?
That doing my calculations, that's what I came out with. I did a
Sorry. Go ahead.
I did a review of all sales, City and South Bank, and all the different categories we had. I looked at stability of those sales. I looked at the increases we have set coming up in October, and these are the numbers that I came out with.
And so we're not gonna get very much more increase with the rate increase at.
Nope.
in October?
Nope, not with what I've calculated.
And then also, and this was pointed out to me, I will say, by Mary Ann, of course, because she's like the superpower in budgets here, but on your internal payment on the second page. It is not correct, because if you go to the next tab H, and look at the general funds. We have it at $158,550, and then in the general fund, you have it at $190,260. So there's a deficit there of $190,260.
Basically, if I may,
But yeah, go ahead.
basically, the internal payments you figured out on electric.
Oh, yeah.
550 is at 5%. When you put it into the general fund, you figured it out at 6%.
Okay.
So that's,
There's a 1%.
yeah, so it needs to be refigured.
Which is, yeah, which is that.
Okay. I don't know how the heck I did that, but okay.
So that is like That's probably gonna make this budget look
Mhm.
completely different, because
will.
that's a, yeah, the $31,000 difference, sorry, it's a $31,000 difference, $31,710 difference. That is, yeah. Okay, Mary.
Okay, if we are in need of more contracted services, as Mr. Turkington had said, then to me, and I'm not for this person anyway, the utilities director, that seems that we shouldn't even do it. If we don't have the money and it shortens something else, you don't do it. I'm sorry. So I'm not against, I am against the utilities director and take that money and put it into contracted services. And then I have a question on dues and publications from, we've only spent 16,000 this year and it's up to 30,000 budget. Are we adding some more dues, publications and notices?
No, they had not all been processed through at this point. A good chunk of them come through in the spring.
Okay, but
Yeah.
we budgeted 25,000 and we're only, I mean, why are we going up to?
They go up, they've gone up every year. Every membership is upping their dues, and a lot of it's based off the amount of sales. And as our sales go up, our membership dues go up.
Okay. And the second thing, the low income energy assistance to CAP. 7,000, according to this, you've not used any of it, but you've used all the general fund money, or most of the general fund money. It is a proper procedure that electric pays for it all, and if we run out of money, the general fund picks up the difference. Right now, you're making the general fund pay for it, and the electric fund pays nothing. So that's kind of backwards the way it normally is done. It's usually paid out of electric first, and then general fund. And then purchase power. You made a comment that you,
What page?
oh, I'm sorry, the next page, sorry. You made a comment that you've researched and figured out that the powers being put to different accounts and all of this. Can you please explain? When the BPA sends you a bill, they send it to say Bonneville, or I don't know what's Bonneville or whatever, but I guess Cascade Rock sub, and then Acton sub. That tells you where the energy goes. What do you mean that you've re-looked at it and have redone it?
Well, the way it was forecasted in the budget wasn't correct. So I went back, looked at those bills, the amount of power that went through each station, went through their formulas that they're charging us, and reassessed them.
Okay, so they weren't being put in here, right?
The previous budget's correct. Yeah.
Okay. all right.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't change the total amount that we're paying, just which sub fund or sub department it's going into.
Okay, because
Yeah.
on the bill, it does tell you.
Correct. Yes.
Which one it
Yeah.
is, okay. Well, that's all I have for you now.
Bernard.
Thank you, Chair. So a few comments. One, that's interesting to know that we do have some electric utility funds set for the CAP program at 7,000. So to me, that now it's clear we can spend electric utility money to support low income customers. So to me, that's an easy fix to generate $3,000 or free up $3,000 in general fund, assuming those state revenue can be used for general fund, requirements. So just want to point that out. The second thing is, and I'm going to repeat this one for every utility fund, but since we're starting with electric, I think there's a strong case to be made. The electric is not paying a proper property use fee. If you look at that number, let's see, where is it? Is that on the first page? Who can help me here?
Page.
Oh, here it is. It's on the second page. Use of city property, $9,360. So you divide that by 12. I did the math. City Light pays $780 a month to operate its entire operation out of this city. $780 a month. That is not market value. I guarantee you, if we kicked City Light out of City Hall and said, go find space for your trucks, your equipment, your staff, everything else, it would be a lot more than $780 a month. And that's what utilities are supposed to stand on their own. They're not supposed to be subsidized by the city's budget. And that's what we're doing right now when we only charge them $780. Now, I asked the city administrator to look into this, and he did a little homework and learned that the port charges for similar space $1 a square foot. He showed me some math that said they're paying 56 cents a square foot. At a minimum, if we brought it to $1, and that still seems very below market, but I haven't done the analysis. That would increase their city use of city property. He broke it down for me. Each utility would pay a little more, the total being about $23,000. To me, that's an easy way to, one, right size the cost that these utilities should be paying, but then two, create a little more general fund funds to support things like a code enforcement officer. So that's the second thing I want to say. And then, regarding the contracted services comment from our City Light personnel, look, I have no concern on properly funding that line item, but I don't want to do that by shortchanging the utility director position. I'm very much in support of that because, again, I've been in the shoes of the city administrator, and when I was there, we had a city light superintendent. We had a full leader of that department, and we had a leader of the public works department. Right now, the current city administrator has neither of those leaders. He does it all by himself. And unfortunately, he can't do it all. And so those utilities are being neglected. And we've got big things that we want to take on. And they're not going to get done if we don't have the staff to move them forward. So we're going to hopefully continue this conversation. But I'm very much in support of that utility services director position. And I feel like, maybe I'm looking my math wrong, but if our sales are this is back on page 2, if our purchase power went from we did a 1.1 million in purchase power in 22-23. We did 824,000 in 23-24, and now we're forecasting 2 million and for 25-26. There's enough sales and revenue to afford $38,000 for a utility services director. That's a $500,000 increase from the adopted last year. Again, that's purchase power. The sales number is obviously much higher because we purchase it for whatever 3 cents a kilowatt hour, and we sell it for 8 or 7.9. So I feel pretty confident we can afford both the line item request the City Light staff was saying would need to be supported in addition to this utility services director. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
So you're suggesting that $110,000 is not enough? Is that?
I'm sorry?
I'm talking to Derek.
Oh,
Basically, that line item is there to protect us in the winter time from storms. Last winter, obviously, we went through quite well, easy. 2 years prior to that, it ate up that fund quickly. And in the springtime, I had very little to be able to do anything with at those numbers. If we leave them where they're at, we have one big storm like we did 2 years ago, I have no money to do any work.
What is a comfortable number for you in that one item?
Closer to 200, to closer to 200 be better.
Sure.
Is, pardon me, The contract services for, the electric fund, 62110, is that 87,393 actual, up to date and accurate?
No.
Do we have an idea what that might actually be right now? And, I mean, 'cause it looks like historically we've expended about $100,000, $105,000, we're what, $200,000 budgeted. But it's showing actual 90, so if that's not real, then.
It's slightly low. Like I said, these were last looked at in April, so
So
It's close.
$100,000 will usually come in.
Well, the last 2 years, I mean, this year we didn't have the storms. I had very minimal outages. I was absolutely shocked, but just minimal outages.
Do you think having a foreman here though? I mean, is that gonna offset the need for those
No.
contract services ever?
2 of us cannot do the work like that. There are rules that we cannot break, and that's the big issue.
And that's what he addressed, was that they got weird wonky rules that we still have to.
But your maintenance that you still need money for, I'm just trying to understand what you're.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, because of the way things were, the winter was easy. I was able to get all the streetlights done.
Oh, gotcha.
Paying for that one guy, which we'll have that guy, but now the streetlights are done.
Yeah.
But all the contract services as far as any outages, having to have a full crew. Fire mitigation stuff, we don't have a mower, so I use local business for that. It's just been him and I out there. I do all the ground trimming and he mows everything as we go through. Tree removal, anything, I'm trying to clean the system up as best as possible to minimize outages. And it takes money to do that. And that's why that line item this year looks so low, is because the outages were not as bad as they've been in the last few years.
Pete. Can't hear you.
you're muted.
Hey, how's about that? Is that better?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Just want to advocate for increasing the use of city property to market rates for all of the water, sewer, and electric departments. I think they should be paying market rates, especially considering the discussions we've had recently about the condition of City Hall and the reality that, if they were having to move to another area, the amount that we have in the budget should reflect what they would have to pay. The fact that hasn't increased in a number of years, I think, is unrealistic. And I think that it would help our general fund. So I think they should be paying market rates. And, we're paying, we've got commercial space in Hood River and we have commercial space in Troutdale, and we're paying almost $2 a square foot. So I think that needs to come up significantly.
And then I want to ask Derek, how utilities director will be beneficial for your department?
You want my personal opinion?
I want your honest opinion.
It won't. Because I'll be the guy trading them on the electric stuff or performing every year.
Eventually, would that even out once you're done training him?
I don't know. I can't, that one I can't answer.
Thank you. Okay, so any more questions on the electric department? It seems like we still have a lot of unanswered things along.
Yeah, if I can touch on it also, the foreman, would he be an actual working?
Correct, he'll be
Not just
just 2 of us outside doing it now.
Okay, and he would not only be over you, but also over utilities.
No, it'd just be me and him, he'll be over me.
And we can, and that's important that we get another person to, explain why, because a lot of people probably haven't heard it.
I've been here 3 years by myself. I'm on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
And you're the lineman.
No,
I'm the operator.
Oh, do we have a lineman?
No, that's what this budget.
So that's where our next foreman, the lineman.
Someone to help me out more.
So
Because
that he can drink a
Take a
beer.
vacation.
So he can drink a beer every once in a while.
So Alvin does a pretty good job.
when he's available, when I call Yates, I get whoever I get. And I'm not picky about it, just, if I got something, I've stayed with them because they've always made sure that
Yep.
whatever I need, I get it as soon as possible. And they're usually really quick on it.
I remember the big storm, because the big storm we had years ago, if the storm just didn't hit us, it hit lots of people. The Yates, you guys were able to acquire Yates, they came to us before they went to to anybody else, so. We have established a really good relationship with them, and they'll step up to us before. So they're, frankly, that's a really good contract to have, because they have that stuff.
Oh, we garnered another question from Bernard. Bernard,
Yeah, well, Denise had her hand up before I did.
all right, whoever, go. Denise.
Thank you. I just want to say that I agree with Councilmember Happy, and I think Councilmember Seeger said that we need to go to market rates for the administrative charges. And I agree with Councilmember Bump that I would rather see the fund strong for the contract services and not necessarily needing a utilities director. I do like the lineman, but I'm leaning toward not necessarily at this moment, without a giant budget, having that new title of utilities director.
Thank you. Yeah, look, just to make a comment on the value of a utility services director. So part of the reason we can have years like we had last year with low storm response is because when we were properly staffed, we got to underground 4 miles of utility lines, from Multnomah Falls past Ainsworth Park. We did another almost 2 lines near the McCord Creek area. That basically eliminates the possibility of overhead damage now that those lines are undergrounded. We've got more lines that need to be undergrounded. That's not going to happen if we're not properly staffed to take on that capital intense effort. There's no way I could have done those without having Tracy Hupp to walk through all the logistics and administrative and requirements to do those types of projects. We're stuck in a not moving forward capital, electric utility from a capital perspective without proper oversight. And the idea that, again, the current city administrator should do that, it's just not realistic. It won't happen. He's already got enough to do to just run the city. So I definitely want the linemen to be hired. I want I think the contract services need to be properly funded, but we also need this position. And again, I'm happy to show this committee where we can find the $34,000 to make that happen.
First off, I'm for, like, they should be paying market value for their space, for their rent. Because when we do, or whatever we do with City Hall, that will change. Second of all, I just wanted to clarify, if we hire a lineman and a utilities director and we have a big outage, you still have, didn't I hear that you still have to call in contracted services?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Until where we would be. Where we would be okay on that is if we had 3. If we had a 3-man crew, we can do
Okay.
a lot more than 2 of us legally.
So it would be better for us, instead of having a utility director, to have another foreman or something,
Another lineman,
or a lineman. Okay.
make it a 3-man crew and we can do a lot more than we can with 2 people.
And I'm gonna push back a little bit, Bernard, because it's not only the 38, now we have a $31,000 deficit because the internal payments was not calculated properly too. So, and I wanted to ask there, are we even considering undergrounding any more lines at this time?
There's a piece that I would like to underground because it's gonna get absolutely destroyed from the trees that burned from the Eagle Creek fire, and that's going across Cheese Rock Tunnel. That's what supplies Eagle Creek Fish Hatchery. They're gonna start going out a lot, and that's gonna do a lot of damage, and there's no way to take care of the trees up on top of that knoll without the risk of it going to the freeway or the railroad tracks.
I mean, are you even looking into that possibility, or is that?
Nobody wants to touch them
Yeah.
because of the liability.
Understood, but are we even looking into undergrounding? I mean, are we looking for, are we doing anything to perpetuate that
Well,
possibility?
Jordan and I kind of talked about it. I've shown him kind of a path that we can go into. And when he gets time freed up, him and I are gonna go down there, we're gonna go look at it, and I can kind of show him, we're point A to point B. And the only way that we've got to do it. It's gonna be a tough one, kind of like what we just did down at, Moffett Creek, or McCord Creek.
That's what you tell me.
I just want to say, Bernard was talking about Tracy Hutt. So Tracy didn't put that in the ground by itself. The crew did it, and that's where we saved a ton of money, because we got a big grant, but in that grant, our part of the grant was to do work, and that's but we had a four-man group.
Yes.
There were four, we used to have 3 linemen and a groundman, and we had 3 linemen and a groundman when we did that project down there. We don't have any line. And you're still, when you just bring one line on, you're still not going along. Derek keeps an eye on the whole system, when he can bring in a contractor, when we see a need. And we brought in line, but we keep losing, nobody wants to come here because they can't make enough money. They make tons of money out being contractors. So we have never, since Tracy, we've never been able to hold linemen here, because they can, they want to get money, and they go other places. But Derek has stayed with us, Derek has stayed on top of the system. Derek is well connected with Yates, which is really important to us. And same thing, you can't, nothing they can do, they're gonna come in a 4-man crews when they're gonna do it. One guy's not gonna do a whole lot more than, frankly, he's not a lineman, but he knows pretty much anything lineman, he's worked with linemen for all his years on this thing, he knows our system really well. He knows the issues of it, and he's made a great connection. So to me, frankly, bring in a lineman in here when he has this, I agree with him, he's the one that's been doing it. And yes, you'd like to have a 4-man crew, I mean, that's what everybody wants, but we tried to get them. When we were there, we could not get linemen, and when we did get them, we couldn't keep them very long, they didn't. So the money was there, then it was gone. But the relationship that he has created with Yates has, yes, we can be out for a little while, but the relationship he's created gets them here very quickly for us. So I don't know. All I know is we, like lots of other cities, are struggling with monies. And as much as we're struggling with it, which we need, and we need to have the debates on that. I would say how we're administrated and how the budget committees and all that are doing, or I think we're in better shape than, not to say we're in great shape, but we're in better shape than a whole lot of other cities, because we do ask questions and we do follow through on things. And we got people that'll, we got a staff that steps up to the plate and gets things done when we ask them to get done. But anyway, what Brown was talking about there, that was a 4-man crew that did that. So that wasn't just Tracy Hutt running the whole show. There were 4 people down there getting that job done. And it was four people that knew that system, that knew how to do that stuff, and they did a good job of it. But trying to get that again, it's not easy.
Bernard.
Yeah, no disagreement with what Mr. Camlett said on the staffing that was available there. My point was that the complexity of doing that, because we needed a longitudinal permit with UPRR, we need another permit with ODOT, we had to go through a scenic area review. We had all these things that would be required to move these lines and put them underground. Again, the idea the administrator is just going to drop everything and do that is not realistic. That's what Tracy was doing. He was working through all those processes to do this project. They are very complex, they're hard to do, and they require oversight and leadership there. For what it's worth, if this budget committee wanted to hire a lineman foreman and a working foreman like Tracy. Tracy was a lineman, but he served as a supervisor over the electric utility. Instead of a utility service director, I fully would support that. If you know me, you've heard me say our electric utility is the most important asset we own and run as a city. It's a it's a $6 million operation. It's 1/3 of the city's business is running electric utility. For us to do that properly and responsibly, we need to be properly staffed and properly funded. We're not properly staffed right now, and I felt like the utility service director was a good compromise to spread that cost between electric, water, and sewer. If this committee wants to put it all on electric, again, I think we can afford it. I'm happy to have that conversation, and I would be very much in support of that.
Sure.
I'm good. I'm good now. I kind of go with some of the things I want to say.
Anything else you want to say, Derek? What do you think about that idea?
Well, I mean, when Tracy was here, he was a working line foreman, so he was out with the crew. Not just office personnel, because he was a union member. So there's a fine line there that we got to watch as well. With having a utilities director, that won't be a union position, they will not be able to come out in the field and work with us.
Any more questions? Okay, so obviously this is not resolved yet, so I think you're gonna have to come back and tell us where the $31,710 is coming from, and options on getting more into the contract service miscellaneous.
Well,
Pete, did you have something?
I just wanted to get some clarity around the use of city property. It sounded like there was consensus from budget committee about raising that to market rates. And I just want to clarify, is that the case? Do we want to correct that so that we are actually raising that to market rates?
Is that a decision that the budget committee can make, or their resolution that sets those fees?
But it needs to be reflected in the budget, so
And then it
I
goes
think
before
you need to give direction. So is that a direction that the budget committee thinks we should go?
I have a question.
Yes, question.
A little bit, a while ago, City Administrator Jordan mentioned that the port was using $1 a square foot. We're using 52 cents a square foot, and we're saying that market rate is $2 a square foot. So what are we actually, are you suggesting $2 a square foot? Mr. Happy? Councilman Happy?
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I guess I would defer that to the city administrator to determine the correct rates. I think that probably the correct way to determine that would be to look at the port of Cascade Locks to find out what they're charging for a commercial space that's comparable. I think, I'm speaking to what I'm paying in Hood River and Troutdale, but I don't know that those are necessarily comparable to commercial, rates here in Cascade Locks. So I defer to the city administrator, but I think we need to raise it. It's been, how many years since we've set those rates? They haven't gone up in a long, long time.
What is it, the consensus that the budget would like the city administrator to look into raising the city property, use of city property fee? Can I just get a hand, thumbs up, something to?
Part of increasing that revenue is then to where we're gonna put it in expenses.
Right, exactly, so, yeah.
Where it's gonna be allocated.
There's some. So we'll be going back over. Electric, we have, let's go to South Bank. Were there any questions? Concerning South Bank? And I think there's only, do you know the difference between South Bank, so, like, because you're the only one here. Yeah, right, yeah. Everybody else knows you, everybody else knows you. Hear you. No questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Have we received the McCord Creek loan yet from ODOT?
Yes, it just has not been posted in Cassell. But we have received it, yes.
If a check comes in, we don't post it to that? To Cassell, I mean, the check comes in.
Yes.
And you put it in your cash receipts and you post it to the general ledger.
Mhm.
Where did we post it to? I'm just
What-
asking.
Did it come in after April? I mean.
No, it was before that. It hasn't been posted to Cassell yet. It's on the list. There's some cleanup we need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in a holding account, yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, so we'll probably be,
Well, I need an answer on utility director versus 2 linemen. I mean, this thing's already blown up between utility director, changing the admin fees. This budget is blown up. I need direction at this point.
well, I'd like to hear from Sheldon as well before we. I don't know, I mean, it seems like that's part of the discussion. Sure.
It seems like the overall salary budget for the utilities director is not a huge impact on the electric utility fund. It's $38,000. I know we have the $31,000 discrepancy for the internal payments. I think is what it was.
Yes,
So it feels like that's not gonna make a huge change, right?
but it'll make a change as to whether it can be hired, or that person can be hired or not. The utilities director. So if we're looking for a different direction in the electric department to hire more linemen. And we move that money from the utility director fund, then there's not gonna be enough, I'm assuming, to hire a utilities director.
Correct. A lineman is gonna cost significantly more than the director.
And city council approved the utility director.
No,
I was just proposing a budget.
proposing in the budget. No, we haven't approved it.
It's been in discussion for a long time, but it's not been.
Do you feel, Mr. Bennett, that the public works funds, the street, sewer, and water, could bear the expense of utilities director?
Yes.
Maybe clarification. Are you saying independently or as they sit in the proposed percentages?
100% of the cost of the.
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be on water to cover most of it because it's the best situated fund, but it's not fair to put it on water.
Sorry, I was trying to.
Okay, so what direction are you asking for?
Is the utilities director position funded or not?
Well, we're not gonna get any, or it's gonna push us to a third, it's definitely gonna push us to a third meeting, because we're not gonna, he's not gonna be able to rework the budget for the next meeting, until we talk, of course, until we talk to Sheldon. Yeah, it's a big question, what do we do?
Can we do some back of the envelope math?
Sure.
Do some back of the envelope math. So it's $120,000-ish for a working foreman. Would you expect a lineman to be the same, 120 grand?
Where are you looking there?
For the 5145, so the meeting working foreman, the expense for the, city side, not south, but 120,000. Would you expect that to be the same for a lineman?
Lineman would probably be closer about 100. Maybe 105, somewhere in there. Yeah.
And then we do believe that we could then reduce our contract services. If we have a 3-man crew, a foreman, a lineman, and a groundsman, can we reduce them to contract services by $100,000 and add that line?
I don't know about the 100,000, but yes, if we have a full crew in place, we'd be able to save money in contract services, yes.
And then the next question would be if we, as a budget committee, decide to fund the budget in that way to have working foreman, lineman, and a groundsman. Are we gonna be able to find those people to come work for us? We're gonna be able to be attractive.
That's the other part.
We don't know.
Derek says yes, right?
No,
No,
that's
he's
my
agreeing
concern.
with
If
that.
you cut
Okay.
that contractor's budget, we can't get anybody for 6-7 months. I got no money to do
The other part is all of our money will be tied up in just hiring the staff, and then we have no money to actually give them work to do, and they get bored and they leave. Linemen are odd and they actually like to do their job and be climbing poles. And if there's nothing for them to do, they will go somewhere else to find things to do. They don't want to sit around counting inventory and cleaning their truck all day.
Connie.
What is the difference in what we have in the budget and what you feel you need for contracted services?
Well,
He said 200,000.
yeah, it's been about 200,000 the last couple of years. It got cut to 110.
So what I'm hearing is you need another 90,000 right there.
That keeps us safe. It's a comfort. It doesn't mean I'm gonna use it all.
Right, I
That's just
understand
to
that. But
make
if
sure
we're
that
looking at redoing the budget, we're gonna look at those contracted services and adding that 90,000 back, which is a big expense.
or as close to that as we can get. The closer to the 200, the better. That makes us safe through winter and still allows me to get things done on the system that need to be done.
But that's with the caveat of not hiring more linemen.
But that's the problem. If we budget for the linemen, when do they come? We've done this in many years. We've done this in many years and we've had very little success at it. So.
Pete,
I don't want to speak out of place. I'm not sure all what I missed because I arrived a little late to the meeting, but I just want to say if we're advocating for increasing the rate for the use of city property for the electric department, I was just hoping we could give the city administrator direction for increasing that rate so that it's comparable for water and sewer as well. I just didn't want us to revisit that when we get to those funds later.
so let's give direction on that, at least. So I think everybody's in favor. Everybody put their hand up that's in favor of raising the use of property fees. I would say, which are we saying started at least, or should we, are we asking for comparable or are we just gonna ask for $1 a square foot? What?
I'm recommending that the city administrator do some research on that and get back to us and give us a recommendation. But I think that what we should be advocating for is comparable rates so that with the water, sewer, and electric departments had to vacate city property, we wouldn't be blowing the budget to try to come up with the funds to pay for replacing that space, if that makes sense.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
but if I understood Mr. Happy right, he wants the city administrator to rework the numbers to show a market rate for water, sewer, and electric, all three utilities.
Yeah, we're not just gonna do one part.
Okay, that's, okay, good. That's what I'm voting yes for, all three of the departments.
Was that everybody else's understanding?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was my understanding too that we would start at the minimum of what is charged by the port.
Or, yes. Yes.
So do we need a motion that says all that?
No, I don't,
No.
no.
Okay.
We
Just
don't,
direction.
we don't, yeah, give direction.
So there's two pieces to that. When we look at what we increase the square footage cost to be to what it is at the port. And then we divide those between the different utilities based on what they can afford. Is that correct? No.
Based on the
Oh.
standard, it'd be the same.
Yep.
Based on the square footage that they use.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I just want to ask Derek on, the last meeting, the last big event we had was when we called out, Yates. We called that out early because the weather report was, ugly weather coming our way.
Both years.
So we brought out a crew early to do it.
Yeah, him and I talked about
We know what
that.
can you recall what that ended up costing us?
The last-
that event?
The Martin Luther King Day week storm of 2024, we had a crew on call on standby in town for 9 days. It cost us $170,000.
$170 for
Yep.
that event.
Yep.
Okay, so that gives you an
It
idea.
is at least 200.
And the fact is, we get events like that. And
Yeah.
Usually it's one event.
Yeah.
Usually it's one event, but Yeah, but there's an example of what's gonna cost you in one event, and it's important because what they do is, when you call them out, which is a smart thing to do, you call them out early. You
Yep.
said, we had a crew, because that event didn't happen to us as much as it happened to other people, but we had a crew here. And the fact is, when that crew was here, even though the event didn't hit us as hard as it hit other people, that crew went out and cleaned lines. They cut a lot of danger limbs off of the place. So they did a lot of work here while they're here that prevented us from other types of events. So they just don't come and sit around. They, like Jordan said, they don't want to sit around. They want to have something to do. And the event didn't hit us as big, but they went out and got a lot of work done for us. Again, there's an example right there, 170 grand to come out for a pretty good event, potentially event. Then before that, I don't think, were you here? You weren't here for the ice storm.
No.
Because that did create, we had lines down all over the place on that one. I don't know what that cost us.
That was,
But,
it was expensive.
yeah, I'm sure that had been expensive.
Yeah.
Because we had poles down, we had lines down. That was a pretty big event on that one. That one had to go. Couple hundred grand or so, I'm sure. Anyway, so 110 isn't gonna, in my opinion, alignment isn't going to, it's the events that get us. That's what gets us, and then it's Derek trying to stay on top of what he sees in the system that is a little bit weak, and bringing the contractors out to try to take care of those, which the contractor does too. The contractor, they look at our system too when they come out and do things and say, hey, you're a little weak here, and when you get an opportunity, we should probably do something with this.
Right.
I'm spitballing ideas, just trying to come up with a solution. Would it be a benefit to you to have another groundsman, which would cost the city less rather than a working foreman? And still be able to get breaks and still perform the jobs that you need to do? And have the utilities director as well to lead the crew and supervise the work and
I mean,
plan projects.
I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I mean, it would help me out in the field more, doing stuff that we can do. There's a lot that needs to be done, ground trimming, all kinds of,
Would that be a
Stuff like
benefit
that.
to the city? So we still have another.
but I still gotta have the funding to be able to get the contractors out here on that.
So contracted services.
That's number one, and when I call these contractors out, like on these big storms that we were talking about, I call them first when I know their stuff down, cause I know it's gonna be bad here in that time. I go out, I look at it, I assess it, I come back and load up materials. When we go out onto the job, I offload the materials onto them and go to the next one. Figure out what's needed for that, come back, load up materials, go back out when we're done, move to the next one, then I go to the next one if there's another one. And it's just a constant movement, so they're not slowing down, we're constantly moving.
Could that be a benefit to the city and to the budget to have 2 groundmen, utility director, and increase the contract services? So we still have 2 people that are city employees that are groundsmen. We have the utilities director to plan and coordinate projects in the future and, to create a sustainable future for the fund and get there some.
Do we need alignment?
We need alignment.
We need alignment, yeah, that's part of 2 groundmen do not equal alignment.
I understand that, but we still can't, you can't go out with 2 guys.
We're limited to secondary work. But we're limited to very minimal stuff we can do.
So I'm wondering what the trade-off is there, the return of the investment, and is it a benefit? It's just an idea that would reduce the cost, but I don't know if it fixes the problem all the way. That's, 20 grand in just the city expenses that we would reduce.
So, Bernard,
Yeah, I just want to, I guess, reiterate what Councilmember Bump was saying. It's very much my understanding and appreciation that we do need alignment. I mean, I would venture to say that we're, even a utility smaller than us, there's only one, Drain, way out in Eastern Oregon. I would almost, bet a burger at any restaurant in town, they've got a lineman, and they're a smaller utility than us. I don't know if they're running lines 18 miles west of town, another 6 west of or east of town. I mean, we have an extraordinary infrastructure, and we're not properly staffed. So I just want to reiterate, we need a lineman. We need, the work that Derek's doing, and we need some additional oversight to move capital projects forward. And again, you can do that via utility services director, which I would argue is a more affordable option than hiring a working foreman. But the truth is, a working foreman, just like Derek said, now you can dramatically reduce your contract costs because you've got a crew now to do all kinds of levels of response for the utility. And, I would love to see that be back in on the city's portfolio.
Okay, so Derek shaking his head no.
That's, the utility director will not be able to come out and work with us.
No, the working foreman would. I'm not talking, yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
My preference would be a working foreman, a lineman, and yourself in our
Right.
electric utility, so we can be properly robust and meet the needs of this utility. And so I just want to, continue to push that proposal.
Working lineman foreman and what was it?
Groundsman, so you'd have two,
Okay.
a lineman, a foreman, and Derek.
But you're suggesting that in addition to the utilities director?
No.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, okay.
So trying to keep up with, when I was on city council, trying to keep up, or as mayor, trying to keep up with what's going electrically, because we weren't getting anybody. I went to Drain, so Drain is just below Eugene, is where Drain's at.
Yeah.
So, but, it went down and saw Drain, talked to them about how they did it. They had a lineman, they had a groundsman, and actually the city manager or administrator worked with them too. So he ran the equipment, he was like the groundsman
Yeah.
for them. I'm just
There you
saying,
go.
that's what Drain did, and they used contractors to keep things going. I would argue that the most important thing we can do is put money towards contractors, not towards somebody because we were never able to get anybody, we were never able to keep anybody. The Yates has done a good job taking care of our system, and they've come Johnny on the spot as best they could. Because they're all gonna be coming anyway. You're gonna pay for a lineman there's no doubt that a lineman can do some things for you. I think you can use a lineman if the power, can they work on themselves up in the line if there's no power? Not even if there's no power.
Rules have changed.
So you're not gonna get a whole lot done with a line. But we have proven, and Derek has proven in the years I've been here and tried to work on them, that the relationships they've created with Yates, our contractor, has been a good relationship, and it's worked well. I would argue you put, the more money you put into the contract into it, the better.
But the argument with that is that he's on call 24 hours a day, 7 days
Yeah.
a week, 365 days a year, and he doesn't.
Not
reasonable. He needs some relief.
We
Yeah, I'm in
can,
favor of having a line.
we can do temporary linemen.
Can we contract temporary linemen?
Yes,
to come
we
out
can.
and, like, give him vacation or whatever?
Yes, we can have temporary linemen. I think the max is like 30 days or something. I have to look at the CBA we just approved, but we can do temporary linemen.
Then I would say go down. Again, I think the more money you got towards the contractors, the shorter our outage is gonna be. Cause you cut out the contract and, or if they don't feel like you're gonna pull them in, Yates is going somewhere else. We're gonna be the last one on their list, not the first one on the list. Right now, Derek has a relationship with them being the first one on the list. You don't wanna get in a situation where you become the last one on there.
That's up to 30 hours monthly, weekly, yearly.
No, it's a number of days. I think it's 30 days. I have to double check. It's not super long.
Party's next.
As I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole budget thing.
Yeah, I know.
We've got a utilities director under the city fund and a utilities director under the health fund. Is that all coming out of the same spot? If we decide not to get a utilities
Yeah,
director, is that no longer $38,000? It's actually
No,
47?
no,
no,
No, okay.
you would drop them out of
whatever,
both.
whatever. If one
So
goes,
part,
they go.
part, well, right, but if we're looking at saving $38,000 out of the budget, like not getting a utilities director, does that mean we're actually saving
We're saving 47.5.
47.5,
Yes,
not
47.5.
just the 38?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. I think.
Can I ask that we, I hear Tom's suggestion, I hear Bernard's suggestion, and we're just talking in circles for the last half hour. Can we, like, have a consensus on which, do we go with Tom, do we go with Bernard? Like, let's move forward.
Bernard,
Yeah, I guess I just want to make a case that while staffing an electric department is not easy, it's not like it's impossible. The fact that Drain has a journeyman lineman is proof that it can be done. The fact that Skamania County has a fully staffed, electric utility, Skamania PUD, and they have hired linemen. So they're all having the same competition with the contractors where, quote, the big money is, but yet they're still able to hire and retain these experts to do this work. So I guess I really feel like that is, we shouldn't assume that we can't have the same outcome that Skamania PUD and Drain are having. I'd like to think we can achieve the same thing they've achieved to properly staff their office. So I just want to put that word out. Thank you.
Two quick things. Do you have an idea, Mr. Bennett? I'm sure you do. The cost to the city per hour, say, of a foreman versus the cost to the city per hour of a contractor. Is it gonna, if we have a 3-man crew, and we can drastically reduce our contract services, if we can get the 3-man crew, I mean, is it more beneficial to the city money-wise to hire somebody? Is it cost per hour?
I mean, it really all depends on how often we need the contract. I mean, without knowing,
$200 an hour, $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour?
Anywhere from about 140 to 240, depending on straight time or overtime.
And our cost per hour for a working foreman is,
would you say about 140, right?
so it's comparable. I just wanted to get that right.
Probably not quite
Yeah,
that.
when
I
you
mean,
add in everything.
if you add in, salary, PERS, health insurance, it's probably not quite 140, but I'd have to run the numbers.
So it's pretty comparable.
It's close.
But the money saving part in that is, and I hate to say this because it defeats what I'm saying here, but using the contractors, we're not paying them all the time. And they got people here now, we're paying them every hour of the
That's
day.
putting out fires.
So that's, I know, I get it, so it's like,
I hear you. Too much.
okay, and then to make it, I mean, if we put the money and contract services miscellaneous, and later on we find out that we can hire somebody, but all we need to do is just make a budget adjustment.
Correct. Yes.
Correct.
All of this is fluid. We can do budget amendments. Yeah.
Do budget,
Yeah, so I mean,
budget adjustment.
we can put it in services material and then fervently pursue hiring a lineman and a working foreman. And just make that adjustment. We'll just call a meeting and we'll make that adjustment, correct? I mean, so.
A line item for a.
Utilities for. Tom, did you have something to add?
I was just gonna ask again, Derek,
James.
so in a power issue or even in a working issue, I don't mind, what is a minimum crew that you use? Is it 2 linemen and a groundsman?
three guys, bare minimum.
So their minimum is 3 linemen and a groundsman, correct? So it's 3 linemen and but to do work.
I thought you said it was 2 linemen and groundsmen.
Yes, 3 guys.
3 guys,
Okay.
not 4.
Okay, 2
Not
linemen,
4. just
2
three.
linemen and a groundman
Yeah.
is what you have to have.
But in addition to that,
You have to have 2 linemen and a groundman to go do it.
but do you need 2 linemen all the time? one of them can be contracted out, correct?
No, we cannot intermingle like
Oh,
that.
okay, that's what, that was part of that.
Yep.
discussion.
Yeah, we can't, that's a big no-no.
Okay,
So one, does it be, I mean, we're talking about one, of them, it's- they can't do anything unless they're doing one, that's all, like, yeah.
okay, so we're about as clear as mud here in the direction that we need to.
Well, just, it's okay.
Yes, we need to get Jordan, so I.
Does it sound like we're asking as a committee, because it's the committee, is to ask for a foreman alignment and a groundsman to be
Yes.
funded in electric utility? And are we also saying that we do not want the utility director to be funded out of
The
electric?
problem with saying that we don't want the utility director is that that explodes it for the rest of the utilities, and we haven't talked with them yet to find out if that's a good idea. So I mean, we're kind of.
Can we leave it, the utility director for now, but add the line item to the budget? Is that something?
Yeah,
We
I
want
can,
to see what that looks like, have the corrected internal payments, the use of property fees increased. Does that
And
sound like-
the funding up of the contract services, which if we can get somebody hired, we can change that, we can move that money around later. So is that clear? Please say it is.
so, yeah, essentially adding everything. Obviously keep the groundman position, a journeyman lineman, a working foreman, and the director position.
No director.
Okay,
Can we, since we haven't looked at the other funds yet,
Yeah.
can we leave it in there and we can always remove it later? If it's possible.
Contract services.
I don't know.
And who knows if that would be hired, if somebody gonna want that job for that wage, and we're going to go through that whole process too, so.
Okay, so we need direction on, we're gonna look at just hiring the 3 people and getting rid of the utilities director without talking to the other building fund, basically Sheldon.
I would like to leave that in there for now and add the lineman, the during the lineman, if we can.
You can add it in, it's whether we'll find money or not.
Right.
Yeah,
Can you?
so you go ahead and add it in and see what we're short, and then we work from that. Yeah.
I just wanted to advocate my support for Sherelle's position and Bernard's position. The electric utility is a major asset for the city, and I think that it makes sense to leave the utility director's position in the budget for now and see where it sits. And if we need to remove it later, we can. But I think that it wouldn't hurt to leave it in there for now.
Okay, is that clear?
Yep.
Is this what you're formulating? Is it putting any money back into contract services?
Well, then that all depends on, okay, contracts, sure, stuff like that. This is complicated, you're a complicated man.
well, if we have a full crew, we can reduce contract services, because we'll have the crew to do the work.
Or leave it as it in this budget, because it already is a reduction over previous year's budget.
Yes.
Yes, it is, but if we add a lineman, I don't know where that money's coming from.
Gotcha.
I think we just have to let, city administrator Bennett just work it out as best as he can, manipulating, massaging.
Yep.
The numbers as best as, and just come back with the recommendation. Did you have something? No.
Reducing contract services means that should we have an event, we don't have the money to cover it.
You just reduce it to 50 or 60, whatever it was before.
But they spent 170 last
Right.
year.
Right.
That's worst case scenario.
First, right, yeah.
Yeah.
And if we can't get somebody hired, then we'll just make that line item adjustment, put that back into contract services. So it's not a set in stone sort of thing. We can always adjourn a meeting later on and present it to the budget committee and then present it to the council, make that move. Or, yeah, that would be the way to do it, right? Correct? Am I right? The budget,
You can leave it in there and then they do,
just a line adjustment.
yeah, the line adjustment.
But does it have to go before the budget committee?
Depends on if council approves it or not.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to go back between front of this committee, just council, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mr.
But
Bennett,
council, but this committee, I'm sorry, Cheryl, this committee has to approve the budget that he presents.
Right.
So we want to get this correct as to what we would like to see.
Mr. Bennett, do you feel like that's an appropriate move to have a lineman, a foreman, and a groundman in the budget? Is that
No,
appropriate?
I don't think we have the work for them. I really don't. We won't have the money to keep them busy.
I hate to say it, but we used to.
Yeah, we used to.
I mean, with the utilities director too, I know this is a point of contention. That time was freed up to work on planning for undergrounding or making a system. I mean, I'm not a utility professional, but I just wonder, I wanted your opinion to see if you thought that was a smart move for the city.
There, here, I
I have a question.
know, do you have anything to add to that?
Whichever, you guys.
Bernard?
Nothing.
Nothing, thank you, that was quick enough.
We've talked about a lineman and a working foreman. What I'm understanding is a working foreman is a lineman, only one step up, and that gives them the ability to do all kinds of things. That maybe, just a plain lineman wouldn't be able
No,
to do.
it's just a job title.
A working foreman is just a dog title.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't take over your position and to give you a vacation. He wouldn't be the person that would call.
Yeah, he would be
Contract
here.
services.
Those would, no, they would be here, and they would be the people, I mean, I could leave if there was at least one other guy. Then I can leave, we can sit down, schedule it, I can go, hey, I'm gonna leave for this week. You know, maybe next week he wants to go, but there's some leeway to give us vacation time there.
Okay, can you do that with a lineman, or does it have to be with a working
No,
foreman?
it can
They
be
can be with either one.
It can be with either one.
Yeah, that's just the working foreman is just a job title. Because when you're working with more than two guys, someone has to be the boss on the crew, and that's why there's a working foreman title. That's the boss of the other two guys underneath.
Who is the lineman?
Who is, one guy will be a lineman, he is also a lineman, correct, yes.
Are we done beating this? And I felt like we grounded up pretty fine powder. Okay, thank you, Derek, I appreciate that, I think we're done with you. We have John here, so I'd like to skip general fund and go to fire and EMS, since he's there, so we don't have to talk about it for the next meeting, hopefully, if that's okay. Thank you, Derek.
You guys have a good evening.
So we're gonna go to tab 9. You can sit up, we can be ready to sit up at the.
I can throw my darts at you.
Jordan, you have something you want to say?
Biggest thing for this is more money from general fund to get the salaries at a competitive wage. That's the biggest change. It's an increase of, where'd it go? Roughly $35,000, or no, sorry, $23,000 for the fire chief. And like, as I showed earlier, about 15,000 for each paramedic. That's the only real change.
All the other stuff basically stayed fairly close to the same. There were some adjustments here and there, based on costs accrued. The biggest thing that I continue to fight is the cost of medical supplies. Whether I can even get them or not. And then once they're back in stock, they're considerably more money than they were previous. So fighting to get medical supplies has been a challenge.
You not buying from Hoover yet, still?
We buy our medications from them.
But not the supplies.
Some of them, some medications from Hoover. There's some things that we buy medications directly from a distributor. We usually use Boundtree as our people that we buy from. I'll give you an example. So there's a medication called glucagon. It's a shot that you give a diabetic if you can't get an IV and you can't give other forms of glucose. and it releases the stored glucose in the system. Each ambulance is required to have 1 dose on it per the state of Oregon. 1 dose is $351. And so it expires about once a year. We have to buy 2 of them. And then, I mean, it could also be used for other things. It's a smooth muscle relaxer, so if somebody's choking, last ditch effort, we could give that medication, and it it makes the muscles relax, and then that passes. Other, medical things that are costly, maintenance on our life packs, which are required by the state, be on there, which we all know that we need and want and have up-to-date ones. So far, those are good, but they require yearly maintenance on them, which is life pack maintenance, which is about $1,000, which has stayed pretty flat, but trying to get those guys out has been a challenge because everybody needs them done. So my goal in my budget and something I would like to see done is slightly separate EMS expenses from fire expenses. I feel we should be striving towards the ambulance service being self-sufficient. So that's paying for the paramedics, the fuel, the maintenance on the rigs and all the other stuff, and the medical supplies just to be on the ambulance. Where the fire, if we were a city that didn't have an EMS service, our fire costs would be in the general fund. So the fire trucks, the fuel and maintenance on those, the fire hose, the fire chief, anything fire related would be a general fund expenditure. But since we're a combined fire and EMS fund, fire and EMS are in here. So I think sometimes it gets a little skewed that fire or EMS is, costing a lot of money. Well, yes, fire does cost a lot of money. We need a new fire truck, it's $1 million. And that's something that Steve Administrator and I are looking at, is how do we acquire those funds to get those things. Their newest fire engine's approaching 20 years. It'll be 20 years in 2028. And it takes about 2 years, the quickest turnaround to get a new fire engine. And they're only increasing in cost every month. They're going up. It's ridiculous. Our wildland apparatus is all over 30 years old. It was all from the early 90s. So trying to keep up on replacing those with a contingency for capital outlay of 26,000 for a capital outlay, and then 19,000 for a contingency. If one of our fire trucks gets hit on a call, that $19,000 in contingency isn't gonna even remotely touch to fix the bumper. So we're kind of playing a little bit with fire. But Jordan and I are actively working on, things to shore that up. The food and beverage tax. Today I actually was able to get reports from the state about our resident versus non-resident on the fire side. And we're responding to about 25% of our fire calls. That's not including EMS. OHA hasn't got back to me with a report yet on that, but just strictly fire calls, 25% of our calls are for residents. The other 75 is freeway or non-residents that their car catches on fire on 1 o'clock. So the food and beverage tax is how we're trying to combat that and trying to put a little ownership on, the tourists that are using our service. So we're also looking at other avenues to replace some large equipment. But everything else in my budget has pretty much stayed relatively the same. And the regulatory fees and licensing, yes, none of that was done before. Those numbers were ran. I spent quite a bit of that money because every May, June is when we redo those. And it fluctuates year to year. Every year we have to license our ambulances. So, and that price is set by the state, and there's no way of getting around that. This year it was $290 per ambulance. And then every other year, we relicense our EMTs. And so one year, our regulatory licensing fees are a little lower, next year it's a little higher, just based on our licenses for our EMS folks are a 2-year cycle. I think that's about all, unless anybody had any questions.
I have a question about the Multnomah County contract.
Yes.
I understand that we renegotiated and we're supposed to get 40,000. I only see 20,000 here and we're almost at the end of the end of the budget year. So have we got the other 20 to make 40? Or
I think we have one more quarter to invoice, but yes, they've paid us for what we've invoiced them.
okay, but so we're gonna get the other 20 to make 40?
For this fiscal year, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a hard negotiate.
I can imagine.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were screaming, they had their own issues for sure. It was a mess.
So, you know, fire EMS, all that, but anytime, most equipment you get, you do a great job going to get grants. And frankly, this fire EMS system, that pretty much they live off of. It was the ability to get grant. So I'm curious, in the world we're in right now, because I can't keep up with everything that's going on. Is the world right now, are they still looking for, are they still supporting grants for EMS, or is that?
State and local or private grants are still pretty active. It's uncertain what the federal side's gonna do. If they've committed already to providing grant funds to certain agencies already, those have been guaranteed that they're gonna happen. But going forward, they don't know what the allotment is for like the SAFER grant, which is a staffing grant, or the Assistance to Firefighters grant, which you can buy equipment on. They're still quite unsure of how that's all gonna shake out.
Those are federal.
Those are federal, those are through FEMA. Jordan and I looked at this funding navigator, which is a pretty cool little tool. You pay, I think it was like $4,000 a year, and you get so many, they call them coins. And so they basically, you write in your top priorities of what you want. They find federal, state, and private grants for those. They give you a list of those. Then you go in and you spend your coin, like one coin is anywhere from $500 to $1,500 in the grant. 2 coins is up to $10,000, and 3 coins is over $10,000. And you input all your information. They basically write the grant for you, and then submit it for you. So it's something that Jordan and I are continuing to look at to help us get more grant dollars, because getting grants is very challenging. It takes a lot of time. There are some that I would like to go after, but I just don't have the man hours to sit down on my computer for that long when I'm also staffing the ambulance to go out the door. And a lot of times on some of the state and federal grants, if you're not logged in and actively doing something and you didn't hit save when you were running out the door, you just lost all your money. So grants are something that I always look for. Or somebody that's getting rid of something that still has a lot of useful life. And try to get it relatively cheap.
Bernard.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chief, when I used to be, in the city administrator job, we had fire ambulance service fees, and then you would have an estimate on that, and then you would have an uncollectibles down below. So what would we bill, and then what would we collect? and then we wouldn't collect everything and the delta would be the actual revenue. I don't see that non-collectibles on that. It feels, from accounting perspective, it doesn't feel right. It feels like somewhere in our budget, we should know what we're billing for in a given year, and then what we collect, and then not collect. How is that? How are those numbers being shown in a budget? You see what I'm asking?
So you're asking the difference between what we actually collect on our fire ambulance service fees, which is basically our ambulance revenue, versus what we bill out, right?
Correct. Well, I
So,
think that should be expressed in the budget somewhere. We're billing X. We have a forecasted billing of X. We're going to uncollect, Y, and the delta is the revenue.
so on our budget for ambulance service fees, right now it's proposed at $150,000. That's what I think we're actually gonna collect, not what we're gonna bill, what we actually collect. What we actually bill is probably closer to 300 to 325 is what we actually bill. But Medicare, Medicaid, and some other private insurances do not pay for the full amount of an ambulance bill. And unlike power, water, and sewer, I can't just turn you off if you don't pay your bill. Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that just puts us, somebody could legit call 911 every day, request to go to the hospital, and I legally have to take them to the hospital, regardless if they have any sort of medical condition or not. They want to go to the hospital, I have to take them. There's no questions about if I do not take them, then it's patient abandonment and it sets us up for a lawsuit.
And we don't do our billing, right? We contract that out, so
We
we wouldn't
do.
have to account for we wouldn't have to account for the receivables.
Right, so we contract with Tactical Business Solutions out of Bedford. And when we switched from Springfield, which is what's still labeled under here under contract services, we should probably just do that to billing services. They gave us the best rate. There's a lot of other places that do billing. The next closest one is up in Washington. And how they structure their payments, it's based on call volume. So 1 month we could have 10 transports and we're paying $40 per transport for them to do our billing services. Well, then the next month we have 17, 18 transports, and now we're only paying $30 a month per transport. Where our billing company is flat out, we're at $35 per transport. Doesn't matter how many you do in a month. We're only gonna charge you $35 per transport to handle all your billing. Which is way easier than having a billing specialist here in house and to manage that for us. That would be a lot of work.
Okay, well, I guess, it feels like from an accounting perspective, somewhere, and I thought it was done in our budget, we should be presenting what our forecasted billing is, what our uncollectibles are, and then, what the net is. It's my, I've always felt like a budget document is a policy document. It's telling the public and the members of this committee what do our inflows and outflows of money look like. And the fact that we're billing 325, we're only pulling in 150. I think that's an interesting little factoid that members of the budget committee should know, and frankly, the community should know, that shows, where we have an issue. It would be nice if we get full collection on that, but we've got these challenges that kind of pushes us as a council, as a community, to try to, how can we squeeze that lemon more and get more money from what we're billing? So I just want to make sure that we're doing this right and presenting this information. And the second thing I wanted to say, this is kind of more of a comment. I guess I wanted to applaud, you, the city administrator, and frankly, our citizens for stepping up to the needs of the fire department. I've been wary of the poor pay and compensation we've been providing for our EMS personnel for many years. And the fact that we're now getting our salaries close to market makes me feel so much better as a citizen, as a council member. And I applaud you guys for really making a tremendous effort to bring us there. We could never do it. I was there 4 years and we never really had a properly staffed and funded fire department. And now, by gosh, we're finally doing it. I know it's painful. I mean, that transfer of $505,000 from general fund is no small, effort, but it's the right thing to do. I just want to compliment you guys for bringing us forward. So thank you.
Jordan, is there a possibility of being able to reflect the full amounts of the billings and then counterbalancing it with uncollected? I mean, is there?
We can, yeah.
Is there a problem with having that reflected in the budget? But sure.
Do we track that in the finance department of the city of Cascade Locks? Because
No.
we don't do the billing, so we
No.
wouldn't.
No.
It's not.
I track it, but I get it
It's not
reactively.
Yeah, it's not the, it's
So
not
I
the
don't-
city
I
that
don't-
collects
I mean,
funds,
Right.
it's the billing company that collects
Mhm.
funds, they're the
Correct.
ones billing it,
Okay.
they're the ones having the liability.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we're just receiving the revenue from it,
Mhm.
it's not the city's uncollectible, it doesn't belong on our receivables, because we're not making the bill.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. So does that make sense, Bernard?
It does a little, but again, it's our service they're being billed for. We own arguably the revenue for that service. And that's what I feel like should be accounted for as a fire and EMS department. We're doing this much billable services, but we're only receiving this much in income. What's the delta? And let's continue this conversation on how we can be made whole. I mean, I think you could argue that if Medicaid and Medicare and some of these things are not paying what we're billing, then we should be lobbying our members of Congress to say, hey, why are you shortchanging, paramedics making $20 an hour in a small town in Oregon through your Medicaid, funding? That shouldn't be happening, So that's the policy conversation that results from that.
Yeah, and they've kind of tried to address it a little bit. If you notice down on the revenue, there's a GEMT program. That stands for Ground Emergency Medical Transport Program. And that is a payment that the state gets from the federal government, from Medicare and Medicaid services. And then they redistribute to help offset some of those costs. So we get about 21,000. It doesn't necessarily cover all of it, but it's definitely a nice chunk to help boost our revenues. So we are involved in both of their programs. There's a fee for service and a CCO program. The CCO program tends to pay a little bit more than the fee for service. This year, we chose not to participate in the fee for service. Because the amount of money that we would have to pay the state versus what we got was not beneficial or cost effective for the city. We do have to pay them an administrative fee to do those for us, but the CCO, those administrative costs are a lot less, and they pay a lot more than the fee for service. So they are trying to kind of cover the delta, but it's not in full.
Yeah, no, that's a good example on somebody saw this problem that we saw and they started to make an issue of it. And then now we have this program. If I'm not mistaken, that didn't exist when I was working for the city, 15 years ago. So, but it's still not meeting the gap. The gap is insufficient, and arguably that should be better funded to make us whole for the services we're providing to tourists, to all the folks who come through our service area.
Yeah, Mary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it started about 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
What about 5?
Right about the time she was leaving and I was getting here.
So that sounds like more of an administrative issue that the fire chief would communicate with us that these sorts of things are happening.
I keep a spreadsheet. Well, I started keeping a spreadsheet of ambulance revenues, what we've billed and what we've received throughout the month. I'm happy to share that quarterly, monthly with council. It takes about a month for them to close out all of our billings, so you'll get Marches and May, that kind of stuff.
Tom,
I had a question on So it shows down in here that the fireman's net total is in the hole. 200, so it's in the, how we felt, how did that fill in that?
Transfers for this year have not been completed. So that the interfund transfer, the 180 has not been pushed over yet. And then for whatever reason, we continue to have problems with getting the ambulance service fees accounted for correctly in Cassell. It's been an issue since I've gotten here.
So are you saying then that this isn't gonna be a deficit?
No, it won't.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how we do it.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with having deficit as long as you have money that you can
Mhm.
head towards it and help backfill that period.
According to our rules, we have 5 minutes left, and I want to respect Mr. Logan's time. I want to get rid of the policy discussions and let's focus on this so we can get me done in 5 minutes.
Anybody else have any more questions for Mr. Logan? Brenda, did you?
I have one question for Administrator Bennett. I just wanted to know where the measure is in the revenue. Does that what the people voted for, does that go to the general fund and then we're transferring it out?
No,
Or
you're
is
talking
that-
what was just voted for in November?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be in the revenue. Yeah, EMS support fee, second from the bottom. It's about 117,000 budgeted this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? If not, you can come back. And since it's almost 9 o'clock, and we are going to continue the meeting till like June, what?
June 4th. Yep.
Everybody have a nice vacation next week. We're gonna be working. Thank you all for volunteering. And thank you, Pete. I saw you yawning.
So did I.
Oh.
It's midnight in New York.
And I was up at 3 a.m. West Coast time this morning. So thank you all for letting me join late. I apologize, but I'm glad I could participate.
Thank you.
Good night.